Welcome to Unholy Inquiry, where each tale leads you deeper into a labyrinth of mystery waiting to be uncovered. This time, join us as we delve into one room. Zero clues. Poirot's brain was tested, a fan-crafted story that pays homage to the genius and sophistication of Agatha Christie's iconic detective, Hercule Poirot. We are thrilled to have you with us on this captivating journey. Share your thoughts. Let us know where you're tuning in from, and if you spot any details we missed. Your feedback is invaluable. Together, let's continue to shape even more thrilling enigmas. Chapter 1. The enigmatic guest emerges. The wind howled like a wounded beast outside the grand estate, rain lashing against the windows as though trying to breach the sanctity of its imposing walls. Inside the drawing room, however, the atmosphere was taut with an ominous tension, thick enough to slice through with a knife. A flickering candle cast wavering shadows, morphing the once stately space into a realm of whispers and secrets. In the center of the room lay a body, eyes wide open in perpetual surprise, a crimson stain pooling around it. Thomas Fortescue, the esteemed host, was dead. Hercule Poirot stood at the edge of the chaos, his sharp, discerning gaze sweeping over the lifeless form before returning to the agitated faces of the attendees gathered around. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, "what a scene we have here." It was not the first time he had encountered death, but that did nothing to quell the icy finger of dread creeping up his spine. The death of a host, particularly in his own home, suggested a vicious betrayal hidden behind elegant masks. The heart of man holds many mysteries, does it not? He pondered silently, noticing the grotesque dance of emotions splattered across the guests' faces. Among them was Lady Agatha Chevalier, a woman of striking beauty and keen intellect, her auburn hair framing a face tightly drawn in shock. She had been Thomas's greatest ally in a recent legal struggle, a case involving a contested inheritance that lingered like an unwelcome ghost. Poirot recalled the tension in their meetings, her voice quivering with an unmistakable ambition when she spoke of winning at all costs. Yet it was the slight twitch of her mouth, a barely perceptible smirk that flashed before her mask of sorrow settled, which made him wary. Surely there lay more to her grief than simple loss. Beside her stood Reginald Marsh, Thomas's closest confidant, tall and gaunt, with deep-set eyes that seemed to absorb the darkness around him. He was no stranger to the estate's shadowy corridors. Known for his quiet demeanor, he had vanished from social circles since their youth, returning only when fortune called him back to the fold. A flicker of guilt crossed his face. Quickly suppressed, Poirot caught the momentary glance that danced between him and Lady Agatha. In their connection lay a shared history, burdened with debts both financial and emotional. Lastly, there was Edith Langley, the shy, unassuming housekeeper whose wrinkled hands trembled as she clutched a tray of half-empty wine glasses. The servants often slipped between the cracks of high society, privy to secrets best left hidden. Poirot had noticed her observing the interplay of glances, her eyes wide and fearful, like that of a frightened animal. This evening, though, she was bedecked in the rare semblance of courage, speaking with an urgency that bespoke her desire to protect, or perhaps conceal. The knots in her apron fidgeted under her grip, hinting at an inner turmoil that she struggled to control. With a keenness that marked his inquiry, Poirot began to probe their reactions, observing their body language, the subtle shifts of their expressions. "Who found the body?" he inquired, his voice smooth yet commanding. They exchanged glances, as if the accusation were a tangible thing. that could fly through the air. It was Lady Agatha who finally spoke, her voice shaky, yet defiant. I was the one to discover him. Just as the storm began to rage, he seemed unwell. The storm, yes, Poirot interjected gently, but perhaps it is the tempest within the hearts of those around him that we must examine. The very room seemed to shudder at his words, the candlelight flickering conspiratorially, shadows elongating around the guests. Did Agatha speak the truth, or was her story but a veiled path to misdirection? As the evening unfurled into a labyrinth of suspicion, Poirot began to take detailed notes of the clues that lay scattered about the room. A broken teacup near the body, chipped porcelain glistening amongst the growing stains of crimson. The cheap, cloying scent of a floral perfume drifted through the air, a brand that Edith had sworn allegiance to, yet had failed to mention to Poirot during their prior conversations about the household. In contrast, Agatha wore a distinct, expensive scent that followed her like a haunting melody. Ah, but the clues speak in riddles only the discerning can decipher, Poirot mused, already formulating a web of connections spun delicately as a spider's silk to ensnare the truth. The storm raged outside, mirroring the tempest that swirled within the guests at Fortescue Manor. Questions reverberated through the room. Where was the motive? Was it jealousy, financial gain, or something more sinister? Eyes darted between them, glances sharp as daggers, each one a potential betrayal, lingering like smoke in the air. Poirot, ever the connoisseur of human intricacies, tailored his inquiries to elicit reactions, his voice calm beneath the storm of emotions. As Poirot navigated through a morass of red herrings, suspects pointed fingers at each other, all while attempting to disguise their own truths. He pressed on, recognizing the subtle dance of deceit, a relationship unfurling just beneath the surface, like a caterpillar on the verge of metamorphosis. With each passing moment, Poirot's keen intellect wove together the strands of the evening, a tapestry still frayed, awaiting the hands of destiny to tie the knots. He understood that the hour of revelation was drawing near. The mask would slip away, revealing a face of betrayal that would challenge all he believed about loyalty and trust. The embers flickered low in the hearth. The wind howled without, but within Fortescue Manor, the night had only just begun, and the shadows echoed secrets waiting to be unearthed. Chapter 2. Whispers in the darkness. A chilling wind screamed through the cracked window, carrying with it an unsettling shadow that brushed against Poirot's cheek, as though the very house conspired against him. The suffocating darkness wrapped around Fortescue Manor, the flickering candlelight barely holding back the tide of despair that flooded the drawing room where Thomas Fortescue had met his untimely demise. It was not merely the storm that raged outside, a tempest of nature, but also a storm of human emotions, brewing beneath the fragile surface, ready to explode. Poirot's keen gaze swept over the gathering of anxious guests, all now prisoners in the very haven that had turned into a charnel house. His heart was a labyrinth, filled with apprehensions and curiosities. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami. He could feel the palpable sense of dread, whispering like the wind, yet something more sinister lingered there, a truth yet to be unearthed. Reginald Marsh stood awkwardly in the corner, his pallid complexion illuminated by the treacherous candlelight. As the rain hammered against the estate, Poirot observed him closely. A sharp exhale shifted the quiet, revealing a man whose mind was wrestling with bouts of guilt. But who could he be guilty of deceiving? The revelation of past debts darkened the worries etched upon his face. He and Fortescue had shared their fair share of games, pawns and pieces moving beneath the surface of their friendly rivalry. Yet that very rivalry screamed of something darker now, a hint that Reginald may not be the loyal ally he pretended to be. Beside him, Lady Agatha Chevalier's eyes flitted from Poirot to the dead body, her beauty marred by an unsettling mix of anguish and intensity. How could this happen? She had demanded earlier, yet each syllable dripped with a rancid undercurrent of emotion. Not merely sorrow, but perhaps relief. For weeks, she had shared her wits with Thomas, veiling her ambition beneath layers of camaraderie. The inheritance case had consumed her every thought, and now that he was silenced, who could stand in the way of her aspirations? Poirot held her gaze for a lingering moment, pondering the tension coiled within her. What truth lay behind those pristine curls, twisted by the whims of fate and fortune? Edith Langley, the housekeeper, stood near the door, the very picture of despondence. Yet beneath her externally quaking hands was a spine of iron, poised and resolute as she clutched the tray of half-empty wine glasses tighter. The tremors of betrayal danced behind her weary eyes, whispering of secrets hidden in the cellar and shadows lurking beneath the creaking floorboards. Unable to quell her jitters, she cast furtive glances at her betters, imaginative cogs turning in her mind. What had she seen on that dark, stormy night? Did her loyalty to Thomas mask a lurking dread, an awareness of the treachery at play? In this vacuum of grief, Poirot commenced his inquiry, weaving in and out of conversations with an elegance that rendered answers inevitable. He picked apart their stories like layers of a delicate confection, revealing hidden truths while weaving through deception's tangled web. "Tell me, Lady Agatha," he implored, casting the slightest shadow of doubt upon her. "You were his confidant. What of the inheritance? Did you not desire it for yourself?" Her facade cracked, revealing something both human and terrifying. "No, I merely wished to see justice served," she declared, her voice a delicate tremor, hiding untold ferocity. Abruptly, her eyes flared with defiance, yet the mask slipped again, revealing the specter of ambition lurking beneath. "Justice?" Poirot echoed softly, allowing skepticism to wash over him. Reginald shifted uncomfortably, his dark past clawing at the edges of the present. "Fortescue was not a man whom one crossed lightly," he added, an edge he could not conceal, hinting at the frail layers of their friendship. Was he threatening to construct a canvas of deception to cast suspicion away from himself? The atmosphere grew thick with tension. He could sense the edges of chaos twisting around them, each moment charged with implications that would not settle easy. Edith, on the other hand, spoke only in whispers, glancing furtively at the shadows dancing along the walls. I heard something last night, sir," she admitted eventually, her voice quaking. A raised voice, then a crash. I thought perhaps it was just... The remainder of her words faded into the storm, leaving a set of questions hovering ominously in the stillness. A crash? Poirot seized upon the thread, tethering it to the enigma at hand. As the hours unfolded under the relentless press of the storm, Poirot meticulously examined the surroundings, his mind scanning for craftsmanship, hiding among the detritus of deception. A broken door pane caught his attention, shards dangling precariously amidst the mosaic of neglect within the estate. The detective knelt down, scrutinizing the glass. A begrudging realization dawned upon him. The pieces, though scattered, told a tale of violence, a struggle that danced around the edges of the darkness enveloping them all. His instincts told him one crucial fact. Humanity was the greatest culprit. The desire for personal gain, the hunger for affection or recognition, it twisted people into shapes unrecognizable to themselves. Yet, in the abyss, a glimmer of truth blurred rapidly before his eyes. What if those glimpses of anguish, glee, and betrayal were balancing with red herrings strewn throughout their interactions? And then it struck him. The floral perfume dancing in the air, that cloying scent, he could connect it to only one individual, Lady Agatha. There it was, a delicate thread narrowing to suspicion, yet veering dangerously close to the harsh light of understanding. "You have a talent for diversion," he stated nonchalantly, observing her reaction. But it was Reginald who broke upon the suggestion, his expression darkening as he glanced between them, fear creeping into the cracks of his certainty. And then it came, an unexpected betrayal, cracked open in all its bleeding glory. "I'll not have you tearing me down," Reginald hissed. It was a visceral display, exposing long-buried animosities with such precision that it left them all breathless. Agatha's face blanched, her shock then morphing into a simmering tempest, hinting she could very well have orchestrated more than one heart to yield. The subsequent confrontation spiraled into a mire of accusations before collapsing under the weight of tangled emotions unearthed in the name of truth. Each of them, mistresses of deceit, began to unravel in their revelations, only to come together again in a colossal display of humanity's intrinsic darkness. All were as guilty as they were innocent, most of it covered in the filth of tangled loyalties torn asunder. Poirot, as they knotted into chaos, held fast to the quiet echo of determination thrumming through him. In the end, all threads would meet at a singular nexus, binding their motivations into a tapestry of harrowing connections. "Ah, dear friends," he sighed deeply, "the heart, it beats to a rhythm known only to itself, yet reveals its dance in the flicker of candlelight." And as the storm outside howled its fury, within the confines of Fortescue Manor, the final threads melded into a narrative far darker and deeper than any of them had anticipated, and with it came a final twist steeped in deeply buried betrayal, one that would forever change their fates, echoed by the thunder as their lives simmered beneath the storm's relentless gaze. Chapter 3. A Fractured Trust. The scent of damp earth and impending doom suffused the air as the storm slammed against Fortescue Manor, a relentless barrage that seemed to resonate deeper than mere weather. The flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows across the drawing room, where the guests sat in a palpable tension, their faces ashen in the pale glow. An eerie silence enveloped them, broken only by the persistent ticking of the ornate clock, each tick a reminder of time slipping away amidst the lingering specter of murder that clung to the very walls. It was a darkness born not merely from the tempest outside, but from the very souls of those gathered, haunting each of them in ways they could scarcely acknowledge. Poirot stood in the center of this haunted tableau, his mind a whirlwind of calculations as he observed the suffocating atmosphere that surrounded the group. "Ah, but the human heart. It hides many things, mon ami," he thought, as he surveyed the faces before him, each one a mask of sorrow, fear, and something more sinister. There was a fracture in their trust, a rift that threatened to swallow them all, and beneath that precarious balance lay the true nature of their connections, unraveled, raw, and terrifying. Reginald Marsh, still pale from the recent revelations of rivalry and ambition, shifted uneasily in his seat. The overhead chandelier swayed gently, casting flickering light that seemed to tease at the shadows, veiling his own guilt. Reginald had long envied Thomas Fortescue's success. The years of their rivalry had left scars on his pride that even death could not heal. "It must have been sudden the way he fell," Reginald said, his voice attempting to feign concern, but faltering as he glanced at Lady Agatha, whose serene composure belied the tempest within. Lady Agatha Chevalier's beauty appeared untouched by the storm's rage outside, yet something simmered behind her dark, expressive eyes. Poirot noted the way her fingers twisted nervously around a silk handkerchief. She had been consumed by her need to reclaim the family fortune, one that had eluded her grasp through countless years of subterfuge. "It was tragic, indeed," she said softly, though her voice betrayed an eagerness that clashed with the facade of mourning. Did the prospect of inheritance tug too strongly at her heart, threatening to eclipse her loyalty? The tension in the room cracked like the thunder outside. Edith Langley, the housekeeper, stood off to one side, her expression a mixture of trepidation and resolute calm. She had always been faithful to the Fortescue household, yet the blood-stained secrets she harbored threatened to shatter the very fabric of her loyalty. As she contemplated the implications of her own knowledge, the tremors of uncertainty shook her hands like the wind battering the estate. I heard voices last night, raised voices, and then a crash," she offered reluctantly, her eyes darting toward Reginald and Agatha in trepidation. The way she withheld vital information was soothing to Poirot's instincts. He sensed the weight of her secrets, a heaviness that lingered in the air. He approached her, standing close enough to catch the fleeting scent of her tension. "What did you hear exactly, Mademoiselle Langley? Every detail is significant." The way she avoided meeting his gaze only confirmed his suspicion that she held more than just whispers of a struggle. Yet her hesitation was an enigma wrapped in compassion, possibly hinting at a protective instinct woven into her loyalty, a distorted form of trust that had turned dangerous. As the guests fidgeted, Poirot picked apart the facade, like an artist revealing the hidden layers of their work. He noted the way Reginald and Agatha exchanged furtive glances, communication hidden beneath the surface. Their friendship, like the manor itself, was an intricate facade perched precariously above deep, uncharted abysses. He leaned back slightly, allowing the moment to fester, letting the silence amplify the brewing tensions. Then he entreated, "Reginald, do you believe Lady Agatha had any stake in Mr. Fortescue's demise? The legacy he bequeathed for inheriting could lead to dark decisions." Reginald flinched, and Poirot caught it, the subtle dismantling fear underneath the bravado he wore like armor. Agatha's shimmering ire ignited, the defiance in her voice cutting through the atmosphere as she pushed back against the implications. "You misunderstand me, Poirot. My aspirations do not justify violence or betrayal. If you think I could bear watching Thomas's ambition overshadow my own, you are gravely mistaken." Yet in her declaration, the chills seeped deeper into the bones of all present, revealing that her rage stemmed from the same roots as envy. Poirot found a glimmer of resolve within the chaos. A sudden interruption cut through the tension. The storm outside raged even more violently, rattling the windows as if nature itself conspired to drown out their confessions. Under its cover, secrets stirred, and hidden agendas began to clash. Yet just as he was about to challenge Agatha further, An unexpected sound, a muffled cry, emerged from the cellar door, drawing his attention away. In the flickering light of the room, it seemed as if a hidden passageway of truth had opened, beckoning him deeper into the mystery. With a swift determination, Poirot gestured toward the door, commanding the attention of the room. "Come, we must ascertain the source of that sound, for if the house has secrets, they will reveal themselves more fervently in the dark." As they descended into the damp darkness below, their fears gelled into a nascent reality. The very foundation of trust was crumbling, and with it, the notion of safety behind closed doors. In the cold and damp of the cellar, where shadows soared and flickered with every breath of wind, Poirot's instincts kicked in. The tension, the fear, and the lingering scent of betrayal hung thick in the air. It was here that the final pieces began to align, a precarious jigsaw puzzle revealing itself amidst flickering torchlight. Ah, but the heart is an artist, painting its many betrayals. Is it not? He quipped softly, yet the gravity of the moment weighed upon him more than any laughter could assuage. As they examined the corners of the cellar, a glint caught Poirot's eye amidst the debris. The shard of glass he'd spotted earlier seemed misplaced, as if jettisoned from a hidden struggle. His mind raced, piecing together the threads of despair woven into the fabric of their lives. Yet one last revelation loomed closer, one that jolted through him like a bolt of lightning. As he turned toward the group to draw them into the web that now bound them irrevocably, he understood the ultimate betrayal that lay before them, intertwined with their darkest desires and aspirations. In a final twist, just as he prepared to unveil the spearhead of their collusion, another revelation struck him like a thunderclap. The red herring that had shifted suspicion again and again had not led him astray, but rather into a spectral cloud of revenge. The housekeeper, in her quiet strength, bore witness to more than she revealed. And yet, what remained? "Dearest friends," he began, his voice firm, yet laced with the inevitability of fractured trust, "each of you, bound by shadows, united by ambition, know that your destinies are entangled in a way you have yet to comprehend. For among you stands the very architect of this tragedy, cloaked in layers of your own deceit." The storm howled above, but within the cellar's grip, a greater storm brewed that would unravel with a creature feral, a betrayal that would echo through the stormy quiet long after the final revelations ripped apart their worlds. Chapter 4. The Vanishing Act. A scream pierced the thunderous night, slicing through the very fabric of the storm that raged against the walls of Fortescue Manor. In the drawing-room, candlelight flickered ominously, throwing erratic shadows that danced like tormented spirits upon the walls. Reginald, his face as pale as bone, stood frozen, his mouth agape, as if seeking words but finding only the empty air. The source of the panicked wail, a muffled cry, echoed ominously from the depths of the dark cellar below, where secrets festered like old wounds, waiting to be exposed. "Mon ami, it seems we are not alone in our investigations," Poirot murmured, his mind a whirlwind of intrigue and calculated observations as he swiftly assessed the atmosphere, laden with fear and trepidation. The storm seemed to stir a tempest within each of them, an anxiety mirrored in their startled faces. Agatha's eyes glimmered with a mixture of determination and dread, as if she contemplated what this interruption bore for their precarious situation. With a resolute stride, Poirot gestured toward the cellar door, inviting his companions to confront the unseen terror lurking within the shadows. Descending the creaking wooden stairs, the air thickened with a mildewy scent, an ancient stench that whispered of memories long buried. Shadows waltzed meaningfully as the flickering candlelight revealed three figures huddled close together, their faces marked by fear and uncertainty. Nearby, Lady Edith Langley clutched a tattered shawl around her shoulders, her eyes wide, reflecting the fear that began to creep into their hearts. "I went to fetch more candles," she stammered, her voice trembling. And there it was, a figure, darting past me, then silence. Silence can hold many truths, Poirot mused silently, his gaze sharp as he surveyed the terrified trio. In the dim light, faint strains of electricity crackled within the atmosphere, charged by every heartbeat that echoed in his ears. "Where did this apparition lead?" he inquired, his tone smooth as velvet. Reginald swallowed hard and nodded toward the far corner. "The old storage room, but it's entirely too dark." "Skulking, perhaps?" Agatha interjected, her voice unnervingly calm. "One could think it an act of cowardice." Her gaze darted back to the cellar, a flicker of cunning lurking behind her expressive eyes. Poirot noted the tension in her posture. There lay a truth hidden beneath her steady facade, a flicker of guilt that only anger could mask. In the half-light, Poirot's sharp gaze flicked between Reginald, Lady Edith, and Agatha, each suspect swimming in the murky waters of deception. Reginald had once loathed Thomas Fortescue, a rivalry heated enough to spark enmity even in death. Although he feigned concern now, visceral jealousy coursed through him like poison. Agatha, with her hidden ambitions and relentless striving for the inheritance that was never meant to be hers, was no less a suspect. And Lady Edith? She had served the Fortescue family for years, but bonds forged in loyalty often hide an undercurrent of dark secrets. As they delved deeper into the bowels of the manor, the walls echoed with their whispers of fear and suspicion. Leonard Fortescue's murder had merely scratched the surface. The real story lay layered beneath the sedate surface of their lives, rotting like unburied vegetables in the cellar. With every step, Poirot discerned delicate entanglements, revealing themselves in the dilapidated surroundings, yet one lingering uncertainty tugged at his instincts, a concealed truth eluding the labyrinth he navigated. "Et alors," Poirot beckoned, "what if our past have come calling? What if our footsteps, each deceitful, dictate our fate in this very moment?" He cast a knowing glance toward Reginald, whose expression shifted uncomfortably, revealing fissures of doubt. The heart bore a heavy burden, and bared beneath the weight of unspoken guilt, it throbbed anew as uncertainties blossomed. Unbeknownst to them, the storm raged louder, reminiscent of the brewing chaos in their souls. In that pivotal moment, a sudden shriek pierced the air once more, this time surrounding them in an enveloping darkness. "There!" Agatha gasped, pointing into the depths where the shadows danced, mirroring the storm above. In the flickering light, a figure loomed, vague and indistinct, then vanished. Reginald staggered backward, horrified. "Where did it go?" he gasped, panic slipping into his voice. Agatha seemed mesmerized, her expression a mix of shock and fascination. Poirot's thoughts raced, connecting the strands of mounting terror. A puzzle unfolds, a game of appearances. One must beg the questions our own fears hesitate to ask. But tell me, my dear companions, who here is not acting a part? Be it fear or betrayal, our hearts remain poised for revelation. As they swept through the cellar, now thick with malevolence, Poirot's mind raced to fit the pieces of this macabre jigsaw puzzle. Each twisted glance, each evasive gesture became layered insights into the personalities before him. Reginald's fidgeting fingers betrayed him, while Agatha's hardened gaze cloaked her motives. Lady Edith, trembling yet stoic, reflected the turmoil that churned within every panel of her facade. Yet a lingering bond tethered them all. They were united not merely by circumstance, but by ambition, a toxic blend of envy and desperation. Now, let us illuminate the darkness ahead. He stepped forward, commanding the attention of his companions. What if this apparition is naught but a distraction? Let us follow the threads of our true selves, rather than allowing our fears to hunt through shadows. The tempest intensified outside, casting tendrils of despair as the figures drew close, enthralled by the mystery that clung to them like thick smoke. Poirot's instincts danced, sensing the immensity of an impending revelation. Each had swallowed the spoils of betrayal and held the threads of a shared fate, where loss and longing twisted into a harrowing tapestry. Then Poirot realized the brilliance of deceit, lurking where light dared not reach. "Ah, time will bear witness," he whispered to himself. "Amongst you lies an architect, a master, behind this veil of darkness." As he prepared to cast wide the shadows and reveal the true nature of the vanishing, the atmosphere changed violently, as if the universe itself braced for the unearthing of secrets far more sinister than they could imagine. "Friends," he commanded sternly, "the truth shall emerge, as surely as emerges the dawn, and you shall each confront the spectres you dare not face." And in that echoing silence, it became clear. Someone amongst them had orchestrated not merely the act of murder, but a vanishing act of unimaginable proportions. "The heart is a fickle beast, is it not?" Poirot mused, darkness lingering like an uninvited guest, as he prepared to unveil the haunting betrayal that would bind their destinies forever. Chapter 5. Clues in Plain Sight. The house stood ominously against the tumultuous sky, its silhouette sharp against flashes of lightning that illuminated the towering trees outside like phantom spectres. It was a night sown with dread, when every gust of wind seemed to carry the whispers of the dead. Within the walls of Fortescue Manor, the air was thick with tension, an uninvited weight that pressed upon the souls present. A dinner party turned into a stage of horror, entrapping them in a web spun by mistrust and ambition. Poirot stood silently, observing the remnants of chaos that had swept through the once elegant drawing room. Reginald was pale with horror, his hands trembling against the table, while Agatha's eyes betrayed a glint of something sharper. Perhaps guilt, perhaps ambition. Lady Edith clutched a lace handkerchief to her chest, her composure a fragile veil over the tempest of anxiety roiling inside her. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he thought, his mind racing to decipher the deeper narratives entwined through their lives. "Do enlighten me, dear friends," he began, his voice smooth yet commanding, piercing through the oppressive silence. "What do you perceive when confronted with the shadow of death that has touched us so intimately?" His gaze was firm, sweeping over them like a fading storm. Yet each held a storm of their own behind their carefully crafted exteriors. The night wore on, a relentless showcase of thunder and heavy rain, enhancing the theatricality of their situation. As they spoke in hushed tones, a clang echoed from the shadows of the corridor, a sound like metal meeting flesh. It was a mere distraction, a momentary hiccup in their already shattered equilibrium. But Poirot's heart quickened. Therein lay the key. the clue buried beneath layers of human folly and deception. The unease clung to him like a well-worn garment, every suspect cloaked in their minutiae of fears. It was time to peel back the layers, to sift through the lies that obscured the truth. Poirot led the group deeper into the dark halls of the manor, guided by both intuition and instinct, his senses heightened in this pallid gloom. But where to begin, when every detail is lurking just beneath plain sight, he mused, drawing each suspect in closer, their motivations flickering like candle flames. Reginald was the first he probed. A man of privilege, often wrapped in the comfortable shroud of security, he had resented Thomas Fortescue for restricting his access to the family's wealth. "Reginald, do tell me," Poirot prompted, his penetrating gaze a silent command. "What was your relationship with the deceased? Surely you must have known the depths of his ambition." Reginald flinched, his fingers tightening around the edges of the table, an involuntary gesture revealing a plethora of repressed emotions. "We exchanged words, but they were merely that, words. I had no reason to wish him ill, Poirot." But Poirot felt the shroud of deception thickening. "Words can mask malevolence, mon cher. We would be wise to remember that." Next, he turned to Lady Edith, a woman swathed in loyalty, yet concealing the shadows of unspoken desires. She had served the family for years. "What of your loyalty, Lady Edith? Must we not question the very ties that bind?" Edith's eyes narrowed, a momentary flash of defiance crossing her visage. "My loyalty was to them. You cannot, will not accuse me of wanton desires." Her voice found a tremor, revealing strands of truth and fabrication woven into her very soul. Poirot noted her defensive posture and the way she avoided his penetrating gaze when addressing her own motivations. Lastly, Agatha's sneer lurked just beneath a veneer of unaffected calm. "You all seem to possess so many questions," she taunted, her composure strictly rehearsed. "But perhaps you should question your own past, Poirot. How often have you bent the truth to serve your own desires?" "Ah, an astute observation, my dear Agatha," he responded seamlessly, forcing down an internal surprise at her perceptiveness. "But while I admire your keen sense of observation, we are not here to discuss my past. Rather, let us focus on the present conundrum, where shadows dance upon the stage of our gathering." There was a slight hitch in her breath, a moment of vulnerability that Poirot did not miss. And so he pressed on, a connoisseur of clues and insights. He sifted through each suspect's tales, each feigned alibi, and every glance laden with unspoken secrets like the tension coiling in the air. Moments turned to hours, and the storm receded within the abyss of deceit they inhabited. With every new revelation, Poirot dropped breadcrumbs, crafting a precarious tapestry of sleepless nights and repressed fears. Just as he began aligning the pieces of this gruesome puzzle, a peculiar memory surged within him, akin to an image half remembered through a veil of dreams. There was something specific about Reginald, a scrap of conversation he had overheard previously. "Tell me, Reginald, was it not you who had spoken of visited confidences, marked by thievery of the heart?" The inquiry hung above them, palpable with the weight of implications. Reginald's face paled, beads of sweat forming along his brow. "That is nothing but a fabrication, Poirot. I know nothing of such theft." As the shadows twisted in uncertainty, a single candle flickered dramatically, illuminating an ephemeral gleam hidden amidst the chaos. A brass key dangled from Agatha's pocket, gleaming in the dim light. The sight was simultaneously mundane yet brain-reeling, yet Poirot's perceptive mind instantly seized upon it. Ah, my dear Agatha, is that not a key, perhaps to a room that reveals secrets we dare not breach? The room froze, tension crackling like static in the air, each suspect's face frozen in an array of emotions. But, Poirot interjected, a glimmer of triumph in his eyes, this key poses a most curious dilemma, clearly a matter of interest in ensuring your own secrets remain buried, no? But before Agatha could respond, a sudden commotion erupted from the depths of the manor, a scream piercing through the veil of the storm. The focus shifted, as all noticed something far deeper now. The ghost of Leonard Fortescue was no longer merely a lingering shadow, but had transformed into a malevolent presence that weighed heavy upon the truth poised to unfurl. "Ah, it appears, mes amis," Poirot spoke, gravely, realization dawning. "Not all tales within our midst are as they appear." With deft movements, he maneuvered toward what he perceived as the final act, ready to peel away the last threads that bound them together, revealing betrayal's darkest face. Indeed, as the final truths emerged like the storm outside, it became increasingly clear. The key represented far more than a lock. It embodied the myriad ways they all had spun their lives, stepping unknowingly into a veritable dance of deception. And surely the dawn would break amidst the ruins of their ambitions, unmasking the architect that lay hidden in plain sight. "My dear friends," Poirot began, his voice steady, yet imbued with an urging revelation, "the time has come to reckon with the unrealized intentions of your past. For within this very gathering, the architect stands unmasked, a tragic testament of betrayal, forever woven into the fabric of our fates." And in that moment, the storm surged again, as if channeling the weight of the turmoil long awaited, echoing their inner chaos just as the truths began to unravel with terrifying clarity. The darkness, both without and within, stirred ominously, stirring to life the horrors they dared only whisper in the shadows. Chapter 6. A Web of Lies. The wind howled through the ancient corridors of Fortescue Manor, each gust echoing like the anguished cries of spirits trapped within its walls. As lightning struck, illuminating the room in stark relief, a figure lay motionless at the foot of the grand staircase, a pool of crimson spreading across the marble floor, glistening under the flickering candlelight. The silence that enveloped the room was suffocating, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder that seemed to taunt them, a harbinger of the chaos that was about to unfold. Hercule Poirot stepped forward, his calm demeanor a striking contrast to the turmoil surrounding him. He surveyed the scene with an acute, discerning eye, absorbing every minute detail. Life, mes amis, is akin to a fragile spider's web, susceptible to the most tremulous of breezes. And yet here we stand, ensnared within our own designs, he murmured, as they gathered with a mix of horror and disbelief. Among them stood Reginald, pale and trembling, Lady Edith, with eyes lit by unspoken fears, and Agatha, her facade cracking amidst a flurry of unshared emotions. The victim was Thomas Fortescue, and his demise had transformed an evening of anticipation into an arena of suspicion. Reginald, the designated heir, was practically blanched of color, betraying the hidden fractures within his psyche. He moved restlessly, attempting to grasp the gravity of loss while wrestling with burgeoning resentments. Lady Edith, loyal to a fault, clutched her lace handkerchief as if it were a lifeline amid the turbulent sea of emotions. Agatha, with her sharp wit and veiled disdain, appeared unfazed, yet her gestures betrayed an extreme anxiety. Each flicker of her eyes spoke of the unseen chaos lurking within. "Friends," Poirot began, his voice a steady anchor in the tempest of fears. "The truth, however terrible, is woven intricately within this tragedy. We cannot let the suffocating fog of despair hinder our quest for clarity." As he spoke, Poirot's mind flashed with possibilities, circling around the motivations that propelled each of them through the intricate labyrinth of their connections to the deceased. As shadows danced and flickered around them, Poirot, ever observant, began his inquiries. "Reginald, you are agitated." He placed emphasis on the young man's trembling hands. "What burden do you carry? Surely a man of such privilege would not possess ill will towards his benefactor." Sweat glistened on Reginald's brow, and he shifted awkwardly, as though the weight of the world settled upon his shoulders. "My grievances with him were merely the disputes of men within the confines of family. Nothing more," he protested, but his voice wavered, burdened with unexpressed resentment. Resentment that simmered just beneath the surface. Lady Edith's voice chimed in, notably defensive. "You speak of grievances, Reginald, but do you not recall your whispered conversations, the ones about your hope to reclaim what you believed was rightfully yours? What I share with you, Lady Edith, are conversations born from frustration, not malice." Reginald's voice broke, and Poirot sensed the underlying tension seep into the heated exchange. Poirot turned to Agatha, her demeanor seemingly unshakable. "Ah, my dear Agatha," he intoned, his gaze piercing through her carefully crafted nonchalance. "You possess a certain talent for eliciting emotions that lay hidden. Yet, I must question your interest in this conflict. Are you not merely a bystander among tangled affairs?" With a slight smirk, Agatha responded, "We have all played parts in this little drama, Poirot. But I wonder if your own role is not more aligned with that of the villain than the hero, given your proclivity for bending the truth when it serves your purpose." Poirot felt a flicker of surprise. "An astute observation indeed," he conceded, though he dismissed the notion of guilt tethered to his past. "But let us not wander from the present. We are faced here with a murder, not a mere play, mon ami." An unsettling silence drowned the air, punctuated only by the ticking clock, a relentless reminder of time slipping away as each suspect grappled with their own truths and deceit. Poirot, ever the maestro of deduction, set about unraveling the tapestry of lies, watching for clues that danced just beneath the surface. His keen intuition seemed to sense the subtle undercurrents of underhanded ambition that twisted around each character's heart. As they discussed the matter at hand, Poirot spotted an intriguing detail, a glimmer beneath the mantle, a ring that had once adorned Thomas Fortescue's hand, now lying forgotten amid the shadowy room. A ring, perhaps a token of affection or a pledge of allegiance, yet here it lays abandoned, much like the promises we make, he reflected, leaning closer to observe the taint of betrayal lingering in the air. With each question posed, Poirot watched emotions flare. Reginald's breath hitched at the mention of familial ties, while Agatha's unwavering gaze danced back to the ring, the significance of which appeared to hold far more than mere jewelry. "It is not merely a ring, is it?" Poirot inclined, "but perhaps a symbol, a reminder of the discord nestled among them." Hours turned to wretched minutes as the storm outside intensified, the winds slashing through the manor like a phantasm. Each suspect bore the weight of their secrets, yet Poirot sensed a disquieting premonition that lay hidden in the wake of the tension. He could feel the pieces slipping into place, yet something vital remained obscured by the murky waters of their treachery. Suddenly, a knock resounded from the door, breaking the stillness. The moment held a peculiar energy, one charged with ominous potential. A constable stood at the threshold, bearing news that shattered the fragile equilibrium. "Another body has been discovered," the constable intoned gravely. As gasps emerged, Poirot's heart quickened. Clarity emerged entwined with despair. In the final act of this macabre theatre, the players shifted. Reginald, agitated and brooding, Lady Edith, her loyalty wavering as she fought to reconcile past allegiance, and Agatha, her tone unnervingly calm, leaving the onlookers frayed and tethered to their own schemes. Poirot proceeded to unravel the tapestry once more, guiding them through layers of deceptions that only the heart perceived. "I implore you to consider," Poirot articulated with quiet intensity. "The unfolding of this tragedy reveals not just a single architect, but an intricate network of betrayals, a web of lies tightly interwoven among you all. The truth lies in understanding who truly bore the impetus to murder, yielding a far more devastating outcome." As Poirot deftly unraveled the web, a concealed affair, ambitious greed, and bitter revenge, it became chillingly apparent that the final twist spiraled into a dark betrayal that none had envisioned. And as the last of the threads unraveled, the wickedness that draped Fortescue Manor revealed the darkest connection of all, an every man for himself mentality, where trust had dissolved into vapors of greed. In the end, with a voice that resonated through the depths of their deception, Poirot declared, "Beware, my friends. The human heart can be a treacherous companion, ensnaring even the noblest intentions within a web of lies." The echo of his revelation filled the air, lingering like smoke as the dawn crept in, peeking through shadows, a painful reminder that sometimes the ones we trust the most are entangled in the greatest betrayals. Chapter 7. The Silver Lining. A chilling silence enveloped the drawing room of Fortescue Manor, broken only by the occasional crackle of lightning that pierced through the dark clouds overhead. Shadows danced malevolently across the ornate wallpaper, casting distorted images that seemed to mock the very tragedies unfolding within these walls. Poirot stood at the center of the room, a solitary figure amidst the chaos, his mind churning with feverish thoughts as he regarded the company gathered. Each face bore the weight of unspoken truths, and he sensed the suffocating tension in their presence, thickened by the recent tumult. But the storm outside is but a whisper compared to the tempest of the human heart. Is it not? He mused inwardly. Reginald, the agitated heir, paced incessantly, muscles taut with anxiety. His eyes darted around the room, flitting between his companions and the darkened corners as though seeking an escape. Lady Edith, his steadfast ally thus far, sat rigidly in her chair, hands trembling as they clutched her embroidered lace handkerchief, a futile grip on her own fear. Agatha, ever detached, observed from the periphery, her gaze scanning the room with an unnerving intensity, lips curled ever so slightly, as if amused by the crumbling facade of the gathering. "Ah, mes amis," Poirot began, his voice of velvet calm cutting through the palpable disquiet. "We stand on the precipice of revelation, yet within you all dwells the spectre of doubt. The night is still young, and so too is our inquiry into the events that have cast a pall over Fortescue Manor. In the wake of the discovery of Thomas Fortescue's lifeless body, the atmosphere had shifted, vines of suspicion growing thicker and more suffocating with every whispered accusation and nervous glance. Keenly aware of the spectral history of this place, Poirot allowed the silence to linger, savoring the palpable fear that hung in the air. "Let us indulge in the art of deduction," he continued, his just sharp eyes alighting on Reginald, whose pallor seemed to deepen under scrutiny. "Tell me, my dear Reginald, what thoughts whirl in the maelstrom of your mind?" Reginald's breath hitched, as if the question bore the weight of his very soul. I am merely concerned, Monsieur Poirot, concerned as any loyal heir would be upon the loss of his father," he half whispered, yet the shaky falter of his voice told another story. "We were not always on the best of terms, but he meant well, or so I believed." His gaze fell, betraying the resentment lingering beneath a veneer of grief. Lady Edith leaned forward, her voice urgent. "We all had our grievances, Reginald. But you seem to forget the conversations we shared, your aspirations to reclaim what the family once held. Have you truly forgotten so quickly?" "I did not intend for—" Reginald began to rebut, but Poirot's soft yet firm interjection stopped him. "Ah, but alas, the memory can grow hazy in the wake of tragedy. But tell me, Lady Edith, what insights can you provide into this family dynamic? Surely you must have seen the fissures that bound these souls together." Lady Edith's fervor dimmed, her composure faltering as the weight of her loyalties pressed down upon her. "It is true that our family has known tension, but there is a bond of love beneath the shadows. Even so, it is difficult to pretend that we do not harbor secrets hidden behind closed doors." Her voice trembled, revealing not just fear, but a glimmer of guilt. Poirot's attention shifted to Agatha, whose nonchalance seemed a mere facade over her own predilections for drama. "And you, my dear Agatha, your mind is as sharp as your tongue. What of your role in this unfolding tragedy?" With a slight smirk, Agatha replied, "I have no blood ties nor obligations to the family, Poirot. I am merely an observer, the one who unearths the truth buried beneath emotions and half-truths." Her calmness belied the storm that raged within, and Poirot felt her words harboring something unknown. As chaos drummed at the periphery of their confrontation, Poirot's keen instincts ignited as he pieced the small signs into a larger tapestry. The glimmer of a silver locket caught his eye, abandoned by the fireplace, its engraving partially tarnished, yet hinting at heartbreaking memories. "A token of affection," he mused, bringing forth another poignant thread to unravel. "Reginald, might I inquire the significance of this beautiful locket? Has it not been cherished, perhaps offered to you by your father?" Reginald's expression shifted drastically, a fleeting glimpse of recognition, swiftly masked by contempt. "It is merely a trinket, nothing more. Why would it matter now?" Poirot remained undeterred, sensing that within that fleeting glance lay a thread worth pursuing. "Ah, but do not overlook the ordinary amidst the magnificent. The narrative often hides in the corners of the mundane." A heavy silence descended, and Poirot allowed the intensity of their gaze to sweep through the turmoil, a moment of stillness in a storm. Just then, the door slammed open, revealing the figure of Constable Hughes, wind-lashed with urgency. "I apologize for the intrusion, but I must relay vital news. Another body has been found, one that could alter the very fabric of this investigation." Gasps erupted, and Poirot's heart quickened, for he understood the implications of this revelation. This gathering, dear friends, is a farce, a masquerade cloaked in grief. Acting on instincts, honed through years of observation, Poirot turned his attention toward the escalating tension. It appears, my friends, that my initial suspicions were mislaid. Yet I assure you, even in chaos resides clarity, just as a silver lining will often break through the clouds. As he continued his investigations, doubt began to flutter like a silent bird among them. With each new question, Poirot navigated the maze of uncertainty, tracing connections that strayed dangerously close to secrets veiled by fear. It was not merely murder that lay before them, but a sinister web of desires and deceit entwined with the dark threads of familial estrangement. And then came his revelation, the climax of their interconnected narratives, driving the final wedge into the heart of the struggle. The false accusations, the hidden sentiments, they all mask a deeper tide of betrayal, do they not? Poirot's voice resonated, clear as a bell. We are not simply witnesses to tragedy, but unwitting participants of a far more tragic script. A gilded photograph slipped from Lady Edith's sleeve, a serene image of the family once whole, now shattered by ambition and blame. It was never meant to end this way, she admitted, tears streaming down her face, unveiling the depths of her sorrow. Reginald stirred, his facade crumbling beneath the thunderous weight of reality. And yet, it has. This insatiable greed we all hold in secret led us here. Why could we not put aside our ambitions and dine as family should? It was in that moment Poirot stripped the final veil, revealing the true architect of deception, one whose longing for recognition had driven them apart. The uncovering of truths interlaced with tragedy rendered them all complicit, guilty not only of murder, but of a betrayal deeper, etched within the very fabric of their familial bonds. "Beware," Poirot intoned softly, the weight of his words lingering like smoke in the air. For the silver lining that glimmers amidst our shattered dreams can oft reveal the darkest secrets that lie beneath. With the tender dawn breaking at the horizon, he turned from the shadows to face his companions, no longer mere suspects, but reflections of their own tumultuous hearts. Each bore the weight of their choices, rendered forevermore entwined in the web of lies spun within Fortescue Manor, leaving them bound to a destiny forged not merely by blood, but by the shadows of ambition that had led to their ruin. Chapter 8. The Unforeseen Alibi. The howl of the wind outside Fortescue Manor was a haunting elegy, echoing through the vast chambers like the memories of tragic lives intertwined. The storm raged as though nature itself mourned the lost souls within. Amidst the flickering candlelight, a figure lay sprawled on the drawing-room floor, draped in the soft fabric of expensive attire, but marred by an unnatural stillness, a ghastly reminder that life could be so easily extinguished. As you witnessed this scene unfold, the shock of recognition coursed through you. It was Reginald, the distressed heir, his face pale as a ghost, yet somehow at peace. Hercule Poirot stood apart from the chaos that surged around him, his mind a tempest of thoughts swirling with purpose. "Ah, mon ami, the heart is a treacherous sentry, ever guarding secrets, yet so easily betrayed," he mused, the tension tightening like a noose around the gathered assembly. A group burdened by hidden motives and shrouded emotions. The flickering shadows danced across the room, momentarily revealing the fractured expressions of those who loved him once. Lady Edith stood in silence, her eyes reflecting despair, while Agatha leaned against the mantelpiece, an unsettling smirk playing on her lips as though she welcomed the drama unfolding before her. "Constable Hughes, have you secured the premises?" Poirot inquired. the authority in his tone amplifying the hastening heartbeat of the gathered spectators who fed off every one of his words. The constable nodded, the gravity of the situation palpable on his flushed visage. "Yes, sir. No one has left the premises since the storm began, but there's a strange element in this murder that seems too convenient." Poirot raised an eyebrow, intrigued, sensing that the key to unlocking this mystery lay amid the chaos and despair. "And what might that be, mon ami?" As a flicker of lightning illuminated the drawing room, casting an ethereal glow upon the darkened walls, Hughes swallowed and continued, "Reginald, he was dead long before the storm started, yet his alibi seems impeccable. He was last seen in the company of Lady Edith before he disappeared." Poirot's eyes narrowed with intrigue, yet the implication that the two shared a deeper bond unsettled him. "A convenient framework indeed," he acknowledged sharply, glimpses of truth woven between the tension in the air. "But my dear Lady Edith, would you care to unearth the depth of your connection with the deceased?" Edith's facade cracked, a shimmer of anguish breaking free from her composed demeanor. Reginald was conflicted. Yes, we shared our aspirations and dreams for the future of this manor, but beyond that, he felt trapped beneath the weight of family expectations. "I could never betray him, Poirot. Never." The intensity of her plea echoed through the chamber. Yet doubts remained as Poirot turned to Agatha. "And you, my dear Agatha, you seem remarkably unaffected by the chaos sweeping through us. Perhaps you possess a truth too tantalizing to resist revealing." She straightened, arching an eyebrow. "I find it entertaining how the private pressures of family lead to such public displays of tragedy. Besides, I have my reasons for staying detached. The family is fractured and suffocating. I merely stand as an observer, a chronicler of their doom." Poirot considered her words, aware that irony often masked the deepest of secrets. A chronicler, perhaps, yet is it not true that even an observer may yearn to be woven into the story? He could feel the subtle shift of focus among the suspects as they exchanged wary glances, an unspoken understanding congealing between them, thick with fear and resentment. "Let us investigate further," Poirot declared, turning resolutely towards an ornate bookshelf that whispered the history of generations lost. He plucked an ancient tome from the shelf, its pages yellowed with the passage of time. "The annals of this family will guide us." As the clock continued its relentless ticking, marking the passage of time, Poirot invited his guests to recount the day leading up to Reginald's demise. But just as he began to piece together fragments of their narratives, the door swung open to reveal Lady Edith's older brother, Alistair, drenched and breathless. "I'm sorry for my tardiness. The storm," he faltered, the reality of the scene striking him with a jolt. "Reginald is dead? But how? I was with him right before—" His words trailed off, eyes wide with horror and incredulity. Poirot's gaze sharpened, the revelation intertwining the complexities of their collective despair. "Ah, but there, dear Alistair, lies your unforeseen alibi. You were in his presence just moments before tragedy struck. An unexpected twist indeed, one that sheds light on the currents of intrigue surrounding us." Alistair's expression twisted into a mixture of disbelief and anger. "I was with him, but I left moments before." His assertion sent ripples of confusion through the gathered group. "He was alive when I left. You cannot suggest I had a hand in this." Yet Poirot remained resolute. "Oh, but my dear Alistair, we are not seeking implications, merely the strands of reality. What of your relationship with your brother? How far would envy and ambition cloud your affections? Agatha, detecting the tension, chimed in. Ambition does make fools of all, does it not, Alistair? After all, what brings one to silence when family blood should soar? Who knows what shadows lurked? Surely you had no grand ambitions to— As the web of intricate lives grew denser, confusion engulfed him. Poirot placed a calming hand upon the heart of the turmoil swirling in the room and declared, "The conclusions we must draw from this unyielding web of deceit will reveal the true architect of these tragedies." As he began piecing the circumstances together, Poirot found himself ensnared by the charming allure of a hidden letter slipped beneath the mantle, a letter that, once revealed, would prove to be the red herring that led him astray. Agatha had planted it deliberately, capitalizing on the chaos surrounding them. Yet, even as it appeared damning, the truth was unfolding in the haze of the storm. Poirot's inner voice persisted, "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami. Underneath the surface lies treachery, as reliable as a clock." He scrutinized the expressions around him. One blinked too long, a glance too fleeting. Then it struck him, the final twist, unfurling like the petals of a dark flower. Each one of you is woven into this tapestry of betrayal, yet all believed themselves absolved by motives wrapped in a guise of tragic loss. But hear me well, the true machination was not merely that of murder, but of love, all too often misplaced. And yet, Poirot smiled gently, Reginald's unexpected partners in the nocturne of their demise would find themselves shackled by the very ambitions they hold dear. With a steady voice, laced with the tranquility that defined him, Poirot delivered the final revelation, stitching together the frayed edges of pain, ambition, deceit, and longing into one inseparable entity. It was not simply Reginald's demise that ushered in the storm, but a heartbreaking collision of dreams, love twisted into betrayal, all surrounding the tale of a family bound irrevocably by tragedy. The room fell silent, the air thick with the weight of his words, a palpable essence of grief fused, with realization tightening around their throats. Poirot took a step back, his gaze sweeping across the shadows and flickering candlelight, forever captured in the intricate dance of truth and deception. "Beware," he concluded in a whisper, "for the unforeseen alibi hides the most profound betrayal, and as shadows deepen, love too can become a spectre that haunts the dark corridors of the heart." Chapter 9. Shadows of the Past. A shriek pierced the stillness, reverberating through the dark halls of Fortescue Manor, echoing the dread that hung over the family like a spectre. Lightning illuminated the windows, casting ghastly shadows that danced across the walls, revealing fleeting glimpses of despair etched into the faces of those gathered. Hercule Poirot stood at the entrance of the drawing-room, his brow furrowing slightly as the resonance of anguish settled in the air. "Ah, mon ami," murmured to himself, "in every heart, shadows linger, and it is the darkness that tells the most compelling tales." Reginald's lifeless form had barely cooled, yet here they were again, driven by ambition and secrets hidden deep within their souls. The storm outside raged on, a symphony of nature's wrath that mirrored the tumult within. Lady Edith, her previously composed face now a mask of terror, clutched a silver locket close to her heart, its weight seemingly anchoring her to sanity. Alistair, his stern demeanor cracked, stood rigid, staring blankly at the lifeless body of his brother, the man he had only moments before claimed to be with. Agatha, the dark horse of deceit, leaned against the mantel, her gaze narrowing, as though analyzing the turmoil like an artist probing at a canvas. "Mon cher," Poirot began, his voice calm amidst the building storm. "It appears we are ensnared by this tapestry of treachery yet again. Perhaps each of you carries a thread that, when unraveled, will reveal the dark design of this tragedy." He glanced pointedly at Alistair, whose silence spoke volumes. "You claim to have left moments before your brother's demise. A curious inclination, is it not?" "It was not I," Alistair snapped, a raw edge clinging to his voice. "We were merely discussing our late father, his failures and ambitions. Reginald sought to free himself from our legacy, you must understand. And yet, the weight of such familial expectations often breeds resentment," Poirot countered gently, his eyes narrowing as he gauged Alistair's reactions. "Might one's desire to escape lead to perhaps a more drastic action?" Edith's voice wavered as she piped up. "We all are bound by our past, Hercule. Reginald wished to create his legacy, separate from all of us and our father's shadows." Her trembling hand raised the locket to him, a talisman of dreams and manipulation. "But he could not do it alone. He needed us." So her amiable tone turned darker, "And he failed. We all failed him." Poirot regarded her closely, noting the fury masked behind her grief. "Ah, but grief spawns shadows, and shadows often veil treachery. Agatha, how do you fit into this tragic puzzle?" The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to her, as if she was a cockroach exposed under a harsh light. Agatha responded slowly, her lips curling into a sly smile. "I simply observe, dear Poirot. The family is a theatre of tragicomedy. Perhaps it is I who find joy in the music of their downfall. The devil's tongue, it seems, blends well with your jests," Poirot remarked, his mind racing with possibilities. "But tell me, dear Agatha, is there not a difference between observation and complicity? You must have known that your mere presence binds you to the fate of Reginald." A flicker of hesitation crossed her features, but she maintained her composure. "I admired Reginald's spirit. I wished to be free too." Poirot nodded, his acute perception processing each subtle gesture and breath. "Then let us not indulge in unsown suspicions. I shall require each of you to recount your whereabouts during the critical hour before Reginald's passing." As he listened intently, the storm outside intensified, shaking the very timbers of the ancient manor. The truth rode in on the thunder, a hideous waltz of guilt and shame. It wasn't long before light flickered through the glass, piercing a wayward shadow that caught Poirot's attention. He raised an eyebrow. A small, elegant envelope lay hidden beneath the mantel, its corners frayed, beckoning him. "Ah," he exclaimed, plucking it with delicate care. "What do we have here?" As he held the letter toward the candlelight, the names started to surface. "To my dearest Alistair," it began, and Poirot's gaze darted towards the eldest son. The word inheritance echoed in his mind, swirling with the spectres of betrayal. The letter was a negotiation of rights. Reginald had been prepared to claim his independence and, in turn, had plans to dismantle the very foundation that anchored them all. This, Poirot mused, offers us an initial understanding of a potential motive. How intriguing, but dare I say, too simple. Alistair's composure faltered, revealing a crack within his armor. I may have written that in anger," he exclaimed, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "We were brothers. Our arguments were heated, but I would never harm him." Edith's expression darkened, and her own fingers clenched around the locket. We are all drawn to ambition, yet all desperation can birth betrayal. It was always a matter of beliefs, of rivalries buried and left untouched. Agatha knew all. She fanned the flames. Poirot observed the growing tensions swirling within the room, the currents shifting rapidly from one suspect to another. Murder, it seems, is a cruel dance of manipulation and betrayal. But I sense one among you hides a truth not merely of anger, but of love gone awry, he declared, transfixing his gaze upon Agatha. I wonder, is it not easier to wield despair as your weapon than to admit a bitter betrayal buried beneath familial allegiance? Just then, as he began to draw the threads together, a shaft of lightning revealed, for just an instant, the true face of fear reflected in Agatha's eyes. The atmosphere made the hairs prick at the back of his neck as she stammered, "You dare suggest I could never." "Yet you, dear Agatha, have mastered the art of shadows, and it is in darkness that you dwell," Poirot pressed, his voice steady, slicing through the charged air. "You wanted to become the catalyst, the orchestrator of chaos, and you believed it to be a grand performance." With a defeated sigh, she sank into a chair, laughter devoid of mirth escaping her lips. "So I am outwitted by my own wiles. But what you see, my dear Poirot, is merely my frustration. The game is indeed afoot, yet I remain a spectator, trapped in my own labyrinth." With a deft move, Poirot strode close, feeling the intensity crackling in the air. "And therein lies your downfall, Agatha. The true betrayal lies not with me, but with you, your own yearning blinding your intellect. Your brother's death has intoxicated you, but the truth shall emerge from the marrow of despair." Then realization struck him, a tender bond wrapped around deception. "Mon cher, the onlookers often shift blame, yet each twisted emotion reveals another layer. You loved Reginald, did you not? A love that birthed feelings, fueled by ambition, yet thought to be unreciprocated. In the end, it was you who sought the freedom he took in death." The mantle fell silent, shrouding the family in grief, more profound than death. Poirot stepped back, satisfied with the kinship of shadows he had unraveled. Love, although a balm, often binds with iron, a curse as much as a blessing. He turned to leave, his voice echoing through the corridors of Fortescue Manor. "Beware, mes amis, for shadows can dance in the dim recesses of the heart. What lurks beneath might not be ambition or love, but treachery disguised within a sweet embrace." The flickering candlelight vanished as the shadows finally enveloped them, leaving the truth hanging heavy in the air, a chilling omen carried forth by the howling winds. Chapter 10. The clock strikes closer. The clock in the corner of the drawing room chimed ominously, its resonant peal echoing sentient dread through the darkened, hallowed space of Fortescue Manor. Outside, wind howled like an anguished spectre, rattling the very bones of the ancient estate. As the candle's flickering light danced on the walls, shadows entwined like spectres of souls, lost to greed, ambition, and betrayal. As the echoes of the tolling bell subsided, the room bore witness to palpable tension as Hercule Poirot surveyed his surroundings with his keen eyes, privileged to observe beyond the veneer of pretense. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he murmured softly, as if the walls themselves could hear the weight of human frailty that encased the room. The circumstances surrounding Reginald's abrupt demise had left lingering ghosts in the minds of those who remained. Lady Edith stood at the mantel, her hands trembling slightly at her side, while Alistair paced like a caged animal anger coiling tighter with each turn. Agatha, leaning nonchalantly against the window, betrayed only hints of her turbulence through the glint of that haunting smile. Poirot's instincts told him there was more than mere familial sorrow nestled within that assembly. Each one held a fractured piece of a complex puzzle, embedded in the tapestry of their shared history. "Monsieur Alistair," he began, his voice elegant and deliberate, casting a contemplative gaze toward the troubled eldest son of the late Reginald. "Pray, inform me of your movements this very evening. As the clock strikes closer, time, my dear friend, reveals truths that lie intertwined with fate." "I was in my study, attempting a modicum of comprehension on our family's accounts," Alistair replied, his voice tinged with indignation. "You assume too readily that I could so heinously act against my own flesh and blood." Poirot's eyes gleamed with interest, capturing Editha's momentary wince as she met Alistair's stormy gaze. "And yet, it is that very flesh, bound by blood, that ignites the fiercest flames of rivalry, non? You see, where love thrives, so too can jealousy flourish." Lady Edith spoke then, her voice quivering. "I had my arguments with Reginald. It is true. He sought to rid himself of our family name. But I loved him. Why would I wish him harm?" As the atmosphere thickened, Poirot made his way to the flickering candles lining the mantel. The shadows shifted, casting a surreal darkness across their features. "Ah, but the shadows blur our sight, dear Lady Edith. You cherish the memories, not the man he aspired to become." "If one hides behind memories like a veil, Poirot, what difference lies? We are all constrained by our past," Agatha interjected, her words wrapped in a tone that dripped with a certain mischievous fey. "Perhaps it is not merely resentment, but love that blinds us all. Perhaps I too could have been in love with a spirit bound to the depth of despair." Poirot regarded her with a mix of admiration and wariness. "Indeed, Agatha, it seems each of you wears a mask, concealing more than just ennui, and masks can slip. Yet I sense a deeper tale lurking beneath your playful banter. Might it be that your keen perception of others stems from some personal longing?" Just then, the wind howled more fiercely, as if imbued with echoes of the past. Poirot was taken by a moment of introspection. Perhaps the hearts of the Fortescues were not only linked by blood, but by a web of shared regrets and bitter ambitions. With methodical precision, he embarked upon his investigation, patiently coaxing away layers of deceit from each participant. Navigating the web, Poirot analyzed the small details. The slight shudder in Alistair's voice when pressed about the family inheritance, the irritation flitted across Edith's features whenever Reginald's desire for autonomy was mentioned, and Agatha's nonchalance began to wear thin under the weight of suspicion. "Let us delve deeper," he said at last, his voice firm yet soothing. The hour before Reginald's passing bore witness to much more than familial discourse, yet every evasion speaks volumes. He directed his attention to Ainsworth, the estate's rather transient groundskeeper, who stood as the sole witness to that fateful hour. Ainsworth leaned against the doorframe, reluctant to elaborate on whispered conversations he had overheard between family members as they conspired in tones of rising anger. Poirot sensed fear, but also curiosity. Here was a man entangled within the shadows. "You mustn't resist, mon ami, for the truth lies beyond your trepidation," he intoned gently, again coaxing forth the faintest glimmer of recognition. The clock struck again. It was an hour of solemn portent. Alistair's posture slackened as he shook his head. It does not matter what the groundskeeper heard. It was merely talk, idle threats, born of heated discussions. Ah, but empty threats shall find soil to germinate. Do they not reflect a seed of truth? Poirot mused. The shadows encroached ever closer as Agatha's voice rose amid the unpredictability of their discourse. Enough of this pretense. Reginald was a man led by his will, and in his quest for independence, he became a spectre at the heart of our ambitions. He was never meant to rise above us. As tension rippled, cries of betrayal lingered thick in the air. One last clock chimed, but silence followed. Poirot sensed a shift, one that had not gone unnoticed by him. The clock's final strum felt like an omen. Each tick closer echoed the somber whisper of fate bearing down upon them all. At the zenith of the storm, Poirot gathered them, each like a moth drawn to flickering flame. "My dear Fortescues," he intoned, drawing their collective gaze, "this tapestry woven of deceit and longing treads waters deeper than you can tread. You have all played your parts in this tragic play of fate." In a breathless moment of clarity, he unveiled the first twist. The discussions wrought in the night were secretly orchestrated. Each family member held narratives that masqueraded as protection for their legacies, but were laced with poison. And there, entwined in the fabric, shone the truth, entwined with that of love. Reginald had once harbored his own desires for Agatha, whispering sweet nothings along dark corridors before his demise. Yet it had been not Agatha's despondence that tainted him, but rather Alistair's, jealousy that collided with both of their desires. "You see," Poirot concluded, while seeking freedom from the familial bond, Reginald awakened slumbering ardours in another heart, and it is this, Alistair's wrath turned lethal, that sealed his fate. As the room fell silent, Poirot pressed onward, and it is indeed love that births venomous betrayal within protected chambers. Each suspect was left trembling beneath the heavy weight of unrequited love and anguish, caught in the echelons of time as they glanced fleetingly at one another. Poirot smiled gently, captivated by the grim lesson that fate had imparted. Shadows have a way of weaving truths hidden in past betrayals, forever shaping futures penned in sorrow. "Beware, mes amis," he remarked quietly as he departed from the tempestuous sanctuary of judgment, "for the darkest love reveals itself through the reflection of our hearts, unmasking the treachery enshrined within." As he strode down the dim passage, the final echoes of their truths reverberated. A haunting refrain of betrayal would linger within Fortescue Manor long after the last light dimmed. Chapter 11. The Breaking Point. The wind howled outside, transforming into a primal scream as it rattled the ancient windows of Fortescue Manor, a place now heavy with grief and treachery. In the dim candlelight, a shadow flitted across the drawing room, darting like a wisp of smoke, before fading into the deeper recesses where darkness clung more tightly. Hercule Poirot, with his impeccable sense of order, could feel an escalating tension throbbing in the air, a seething undercurrent that promised chaos and despair. For the hour was late, and the night bore witness to hidden sins ready to erupt. It was the howling tempest that heralded calamity, yet none anticipated the violence that would soon tear through the fragile fabric of their familial ties. Agatha, her demeanor restless after the revelations of her brother's death, paced like a caged bird. Across the room, Alistair stood rigidly by the mantel, eyes cast downward, as he wrestled with undulating emotions. One could feel his resentment coiling tight within him, while Lady Edith, her hands wringing together, exuded a fragile air of desperation that could shatter at any moment. Poirot, an unwavering observer of the human condition, sensed that the thread of their collective anguish was about to snap, a singular moment blurring the lines between love and hatred. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the study, a harbinger of much darker revelations. Poirot's heart raced, not on account of fear, but from the thrill of an impending truth. He directed the unsteady beam of his gaze towards the doorway, and without the slightest hesitation, he moved forward. Whatever chaos had unfolded would lay bare the fault lines within this troubled family, pieces scattered across a board not yet understood. The room fell silent. An uneasy pact formed in anticipation as Poirot entered the study. Before him lay the body of Ainsworth, the groundskeeper, sprawled on the hardwood floor, a pool of crimson soaking through his garments, painting a morbid tapestry against the rich wood. The flickering candlelight now danced with grotesque reflections, casting a series of eerie shadows upon the walls. Poirot knelt beside the lifeless figure, noting with keen observation the angle of the head, the stillness of the hands. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he muttered softly, feeling the weight of regret that hung in the air like a fog ready to swallow them whole. As he rose, Poirot was acutely aware of the collective gasps that reverberated through the family, their faces twisting in an illusion of grief mixed with an undercurrent of relief. "What a tragedy," Alistair stammered, masking a glint of dark satisfaction. "How could this have happened?" There was a tremble in his voice, one that betrayed the tension between sorrow and an unadmitted glee. Agatha maintained her unsettling calm, the faintest smile playing on her lips, while Lady Edith gripped the frame of the door, a tableau of shock and horror. "Indeed, a tragedy it is, but let us not dwell in the realm of grief too long," Poirot declared, his voice imbued with an elegance that bore authority. "There are mysteries that require elucidation. Who among you holds the key to this dark chamber?" As he led the family back into the drawing room, his mind wove through the clues. More than mere presence, what did motive reveal? Each individual before him was laden with secrets, and with each passing moment, Poirot sought to disentangle their stories. Through careful interrogations, he pried at the sorrow that bound them. Alistair spoke of his loyalty to the family, yet there was an undercurrent of bitterness directed towards Ainsworth, a man who had often reproached him for not living up to his potential. Agatha, with her beguiling charm, revealed the haunting memories of their shared history, yet her laughter carried a note of defensiveness. Why must we speculate on motive, when in truth, it is grief that brings us here, no? She mused, masking something darker beneath her facade. As for Lady Edith, her claim of unwavering love became ever more suspicious. The slightest variation in her voice indicated a desperate need to shield hidden resentments buried deep. Hours passed in an uneasy tension, arms crossed and gazes averted. Poirot watched as Alistair's ire flared at every corner turned, revealing the fragile threads of anger that connected him to the past. Still, a deeper truth lurked beneath. What tragedy lurked behind family loyalty? But just as Poirot began to draw a curvilinear connection, a flicker in the reflection of the candlelight captured his attention. The reflection of a familiar figure moving too deliberately across the room. His eyes narrowed, watching as Agatha slipped into the shadows, a wraith-like presence reconciling with the despair that cloaked her soul. "Ah, ma chère Agatha," he called after her. "There exists a final act yet to be rendered." And with those words, she revealed a closely guarded truth. The family, it seemed, had conspired against her brother, Ashworth, the only one who had embraced Reginald's dream of freedom. But did this newfound knowledge give rise to an allegiance forged of love, or a devious scheme shadowing her intentions? With the pieces of their convoluted narratives scattered before him, Poirot sensed a moment of clarity forming, one tainted by red herrings that whisked him elsewhere. Nay, Agatha did not quite hold the dagger, but a smattering of regret reflected off the surface of her emotions. Yet another tantalizing clue. "Do not mistake betrayal for love," he pondered aloud, his voice reverberating around the room like a wind chime under pressure. A hush fell, anticipation and unease entwined. Then, as if maddened, a confession broke through Lady Edith's lips, her voice cracking. "I wished for his death," she cried. "He was to be rid of Reginald's shadow, a weight upon my heart I could bear no longer." Herein lay the relayed weight of pain, jealousy threading through family ties like venom. Yet, in an explosive twist, Agatha began to weep. "But I loved him. It was not my hand that raised the dagger." Despair enveloped them all as they reeled, the tempest outside gripping the manor. Poirot steadied himself. Everything was climbing to a taut crescendo. "Ah, mes amis," he intoned, his voice echoing with finality, "but the heart reveals its treacherous nature. The one truly lost amid this rage was not Reginald, but you all, shackled by your despair. Behind the dark facade, your hearts betray you even now." And with that, Poirot revealed his conclusion, each thread beautifully woven, revealing the treachery and love entwined upon the great loom of familial obligations. The admiration he held for Agatha, the sympathy he offered to Alistair, and the tenderness unmasked within Lady Edith, rolled together like thunderclouds, awaiting their release. "Beware, mes amis," he pronounced with somber elegance, "for love and betrayal always dance upon the precipice of grief." As the storm raged beyond the walls of Fortescue Manor, the curtain fell upon the final act, this tale of shadows, betrayal, and a bond forever broken. The truth had emerged, yet amidst the ashes, their hearts lay bare, fractured beyond repair. Chapter 12. The Final Revelation. The wind screamed through the crevices of Fortescue Manor, a harbinger of dread, as shadows danced menacingly upon the walls. A shatter of glass echoed through the corridors like the tolling of a funeral bell, signaling that something wicked had transpired within its hallowed halls. In the dim glow of candlelight, Hercule Poirot awaited the storm to unveil its secrets as he stared intently at the fragmented remnants of a shattered mirror that now lay upon the cold, hard floor. Before him was Agatha, her face pale and taut as if a soul had been stripped bare from its coverings, a ghost of the vivacious woman she once was. Alistair stood nearby, tense muscles taut under the thin fabric of his shirt, determination etched into his brow as he cast darting glances at the remaining family members, each devoid of innocence, each cloaked in suspicion. Lady Edith clutched a silver locket around her neck, her breath quickening, betraying the anxieties simmering just below the surface. Unbeknownst to them, Poirot could sense the tremors of deception coursing through the very air they breathed. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami. Poirot mused quietly, his gaze sweeping across the room, taking stock of their subtle movements, the unguarded gestures of mounting unease that betrayed the narrative they wished to weave. The aftermath of Ainsworth's demise still hung heavy between them, yet the catalyst of their strife remained unseen, hidden amidst the layers of fabric that shrouded their haunted semblance of normalcy. As the tempest beyond battered the manor's timbers, the group settled into a restless silence, each member wrestling with both suspicion and sorrow. Poirot began to piece together the threads of their collective mystery. Agatha had been the only sibling who stood beside Reginald in seeking freedom from their suffocating legacy, and yet amidst that kinship resided treachery. Her laughter masked not only longing, but a deep-seated rage for his ambitions, however noble they may have been. Alistair's posture spoke of indignation, simmering just below the surface, his resentment toward the groundskeeper for intruding upon their delicate semblance of family honor. "You must allow me to unravel this tapestry of secrets," Poirot urged, his voice low yet firm, slicing through the electric tension that hung heavily about them. "Let us explore the echoes of your past and uncover the truths lurking within." Acting upon his keen observations, he steadied his focus on Alistair, who hesitated before responding, a flicker of defiance igniting in his eyes. "Ainsworth was a fool, verbally chastised me for every slight against my aspirations. He laid bare my failures before the family. I would not lament his passing. He deserved every harsh word. I am merely relieved his shadow is gone." His voice quivered, teetering between fury and guilt. Agatha shot him a glance filled with venom. "Relieved, Alistair? Is that your only emotion? Or is it regret for the vicious resentment that churned within you? Is it not you who would bring the mantle of legacy upon us all?" There was a calculated edge in her tone, though it faltered when laced with deeper emotions, an affinity that flickered with pain. Poirot interjected smoothly, switching the focus like a game of chess. "The heart may act out of passion, but it is the mind with its reason that reveals culpability. Lady Edith, what say you? Speak now, for the truth of this household is caught within the storm outside." In that charged moment, the storm unleashed a deluge, and Lady Edith's steely facade cracked. A confession seeped from her lips, fragile yet resolute. "I wished for his death. It was not out of malice, but desperation. Reginald's dream of cutting ties—" Her voice broke. "It was a chain to me, stifling and relentless. I wanted only to breathe freely, to escape the suffocating weight." Her confession hung upon the air, suspended within a web of accusations. Poirot's amber eyes scrutinized every nuance of her revelation, and yet there was something awry. Only moments before, Agatha now dared to quiver in pain, tears flowing unexpectedly. "I loved him. I wanted to free him from the shackles of discord as much as I wished to free myself. Yet I would never harm a hair on his head." Her cry for comprehension begged the question: who truly had the dagger raised? The investigation twisted and turned, leading Poirot to think deeply about the role of sympathy and betrayal. As he gathered their fragments of truth, the clock ticked ominously in the background, every passing second a reminder of their fragility. Concealed beneath their mutual accusations was a more profound truth, one cloaked in familial loyalty, a labyrinth of intertwined fates ready to collapse before his adjudication. Yet the mystery remained tantalizingly out of reach. Poirot's mind wove through possibilities, the sharp edges of each revelation spinning around him. Were they mere subplots in a tragedy, or players in a well-orchestrated design? The truth weighed heavily, but recent actions led him back to a poignant image, a reflection in the broken mirror. With a spark of enlightenment, he rounded back to the locket that Lady Edith clutched. It held a deeper story. "Lady Edith," Poirot questioned gently, "what memories does this locket carry? For I sense it bears secrets of a different love, perhaps one that existed between you and Reginald." This, her expression shifted, a facade crumbling. "Reginald and I," she stammered, "we shared dreams, long before—" Her eyes darted to Agatha, the very spark of sin infusing her confession. "He wished to set both of us free, liberated from our current lives." The weight of revelation fell upon the room with the thud of an iron bell, yet Poirot was not yet finished. "And here lies the heart of the matter. You both sought to escape the very bonds that tethered you to this nightmare. But in desire lies desperation." With newfound fervor, he turned to Alistair. "While you rendered disdain for your brother, could you truly bear the thought of losing Agatha? For it is she whom you loved." The gasps erupted as Alistair paled, his pain now exposed in the shimmering candlelight. "A love that remains unknown until the final curtain falls," Poirot remarked thoughtfully. "Far too many have danced upon this precipice of despair, where passion intertwines with betrayal in a tragic duet. Ashworth, you claimed him as the chains of legacy. Yet has your love driven you into concealing a darker truth?" "But what truth?" came Agatha's frustrated plea. The truth had evaded them all, curling into shadows, yet Poirot held steadfast to a keen clarity. "I will unveil it," he insisted, rising like a general before battle. "The dagger never belonged to one of you. Nay, it was a manifestation of your collective desires, drawing you all closer, yet apart. It was each and every one of your intentions that killed Reginald, a family broken by love turned treacherous, and in this act of cowardice, the true murderer shall walk among you." With this declaration, a silence enveloped the room, heavy with the fabric of despair, yet vibrantly laced with the bitter sting of truth. "To forget love, it seems, is the greatest betrayal of all," Poirot whispered, his eyes alight with the echo of enlightenment. And as the echoes of their understanding reverberated through the ancient halls of Fortescue Manor, the tempest outside settled into an eerie calm. The heart of darkness now bore the light of revelation, yet betrayal lingered palpably in the air, a final act forever scarred upon their souls.